Hey guys! So I decided that I'm going to talk about the psychological aspect of video game addiction, and what I learned was that a lot of video game developers actually use something called the Skinner box, which is a scientific method or theory of what makes us video game players addicted to keep constantly playing the video game. Um, and with that, there's a couple of steps to this that makes us addicted. So the first one is called a virtual food pellet. And with that, that's basically saying loot. Loot is one. When you first start in the beginning of a game, you learn how to kill something and you were rewarded with like a piece of loot. With that, your brain treats items as goods as if they are real items. And that's because it's the sense of like the time that it took, the effort that it took, and the skill that it took, whatever skill you may be, if you're in level 1 or 100, whatever skill that may be to obtain that item, it now has actual value to it because it took more time than it actually took your time. And then with that, since we're natural hoarders, we would like to make sure that we have enough of everything instead of just one of everything, because everything is precious to us when we first are starting as a video game player, especially in the beginning of a story. So what do they do though to make us keep playing? Because obviously if that's what it was for the entire game, we would say, well, this is lame. Like, okay, like I'm already like level 100. So what they do is now, that was the first step. The second step is now that you start playing, now what they're going to do is they're going to make us try and like keep playing by actually not giving us the virtual food pebbles, so like the loot after every kill. Now what it might be sporadic. It might be every 3, every 5, whenever we may need it. So with that, it's again, they're making us put in more time, more effort, and more skill to obtain an item which has value. Which is really sucky because sometimes sometimes that's just enough to get you, you know, really addicted if it's a good game. And then what really gets us to really want to actually play forever, well, like what really sucks us in, there's 3 things. Easing us in. So besides us just getting loot every now and then, again, those virtual food pebbles or food pellets, whatever gets us, those every once in a while. Now they're actually when you first start playing, you get a lot. And then as you develop more and become more of a master and, level up faster, the consistency and the frequency of loot dropping actually lowers, which means you're still gaining EXP points, but you're not getting the loot as frequent as you wanted to, which means you're going to have to, again, work harder, put more time into it and more skill into it, just to get just to get loot. And then there's another one called eliminating stopping points, which is basically getting rid of save areas. And those save areas are usually spots where you can actually go and save your location and your process of how far that you've gone since you've played since the first like half hour or whatever. And what that does is sometimes what that will do is if you finish fighting a boss and there's no save sphere or save point or save whatever it's called, it actually forces the player and engages them to do like a longer mission or whatever it may be in order for them to be able to save. So you're actually forcing the player to actually play longer. And then there's something called play it or lose it. In play it or lose it, it's similar to Farmville where you have your crops, you rake it, you put the seeds in, you water it, and if you don't overlook it 24/7 or consistently like come back and look at it, you actually lose all the work that you did. And so sometimes that can be really addictive too, because a lot of people would rather just gain more than lose it and do the work that they had to do all over again. And so the point is here is, like how does that relate back to adults in World of Warcraft, or how does that relate back to teens? Well, for World of Warcraft, average age is 30-year-old people, and with that, they probably have 40-hour, jobs paid. And so with that, most likely the reason why of their addiction is they probably have something missing in their job. There's 3 things that I found. Having some sort of say in your job, so some sort of, like, if not management, then some sort of authority talk. The second one is if you are doing mindless work, at the same thing all the time. That's going to make you, some sort of find an outlet to World of Warcraft or some sort of video game to make you feel better. And then the connection between your effort and your reward. So, like, if you work really hard, but you get, like, a really crappy reward for it, like, oh, hey, congratulations, pat on the back, you're obviously not going to feel like you're valued. So, with that, in World of Warcraft, when you level up, like, this is what fills that void. In World of Warcraft, when you level up, the beam of light explodes from your body, and even then, that the sense of accomplishment is important versus the instant gratification. So, even though you have the pat on the back from like your boss, that's just like a pat on the back. That's not something like cool where you have like beams of light coming out of your body. You're like, oh, like glowing angels. And with that, compared to the real world, the real world is just so much slower and cruel than we expect it to be. Like in World of Warcraft, you could, if you spend 60 hours in World of Warcraft, you could probably level up really fast compared to, you in real life. You spend 60 hours, that's what, like 2.5 weeks of like full-time work, and you're not even promoted. Yeah. So that's where the addiction comes in for adults, and addiction for teens and adolescents. Sometimes what I found was it's a lot of social problems. It's a lot of, if not social problems, then it's like family problems at home. Basically, video games are used to fill in that void, to replace whatever they're missing or whatever. So a lot of the time too is like when they're playing video games, dopamine is released in the brain, which gives off good sensations and positive sensations and like a euphoric kind of a feeling. So yeah, so that is what I learned from both of, or from the addiction psychological thing. Yeah.